Imagine a delivery driver losing an hour to a single rural house because an entire townland shares the same address until every front door is given its own unique code. Picture the energy wasted heating a giant tank of water just to rinse your hands until a single switch learns to heat only the cupful you actually need. Think of the seasoning pooled uselessly at the bottom of a crisp packet until someone works out how to fix the flavor to the crisp itself. For decades, we treat small frictions like these as simply normal. One country looked at them and quietly engineered them out of ordinary life. Today, we're counting down 15 things in Ireland that instantly improve everyday life. And watch until the end, because number 15, a simple piece of emergency equipment bolted to public walls, changed how the entire world responds to sudden cardiac arrest. Number 1, the Eircode pinpoint postcode. Most postcodes group thousands of homes into one large zone, which works until you live somewhere with repeating street names, rural crossroads, or shared townlands. There, accurate post, courier drops, and emergency response become genuinely difficult, and drivers end up hunting for a property described as the third house past a stone wall. In 2015, Ireland gave every single dwelling and business its own 7-character code. Rather than naming a neighborhood, the code is a unique identifier tied to one exact location and a precise set of coordinates. Government figures showed that roughly 35% of addresses in the country, more than 600,000 of them, shared a name or had no house number at all. By mapping each premises individually, the system routes a vehicle past the general area and straight to one specific door. Number 2, the pub snug. A big open bar is loud, reflective, and quietly it watches you. If you wanted a sensitive conversation, a private word, or simply a quiet corner away from the crowd, you'd normally have to leave the building. The Irish answer is a small enclosed booth called a snug, with high solid walls, its own door, and frosted glass that blocks the view in. These were the rooms where business was done, where courting couples sat, where a local priest or a garda could have a discreet pint, and where, in an earlier era, women could drink away from the main bar. The detail that makes it work is a small hinged hatch set into the wall it shares with the bar, so you can order, be served, and settle up without ever stepping back into the public room. It's a century-old blueprint for privacy inside a busy space, and once you've sat in one, every open-plan bar feels a little exposed by comparison. Number 3, the Guinness widget. Pour a traditional stout from an ordinary can, and it tends to come out thin and flat, with none of the thick, creamy head you'd get from a freshly pulled pint because the large carbon dioxide bubbles escape too fast once the can is open. In the late 1980s, Guinness engineers fixed this with a hollow plastic sphere, the widget, fitted into the base of the can. A little liquid nitrogen is added before sealing, and as it turns to gas, it builds pressure that pushes a small amount of beer into the widget through a tiny hole. The instant you open the can, the pressure inside drops, and that difference fires the trapped beer and gas back out of the widget at speed, releasing a cascade of fine nitrogen bubbles that build the same tight, creamy head as a proper draft pour. When the British public was once polled on the greatest inventions of the previous 40 years, the widget beat the internet. Number 4, the dual-element immersion heater. A traditional cylinder warms its entire copper tank, often more than 120 liters, whether you want a full bath or just enough hot water to rinse a few dishes. That means constant passive heat loss, higher bills, and a long wait for a small job. The Irish answer is a hot water cylinder fitted with 2 heating elements at different heights inside the tank. The sink setting powers only the short element near the top, warming the upper portion, around 40 liters, in a few minutes. The bath setting drives a longer, deeper element that heats the whole tank. Because hot water rises and stays layered above the cold, the top stays hot without bleeding warmth downward, and most modern versions add a countdown timer that cuts the power automatically once you're done. Number 5, the hot press. Drying laundry usually means a power-hungry tumble dryer that wears out fabric, or a clothes horse that fills the room with damp and invites mold. Irish homes solve it without spending a watt, using a cupboard built directly around the insulated hot water cylinder known as the hot press. The small amount of warmth that any tank gives off would normally drift uselessly into the walls. Here it's captured inside an enclosed, ventilated space with slatted shelves, so warm, dry air circulates continuously through linens, towels, and clothes. It works as a round-the-clock airing cupboard and passive dryer, keeping fabrics dry and pulling humidity out of the house at no running cost. If you're finding these interesting, like genuinely helps the channel reach more people who'd enjoy this kind of thing. And if you like discovering ideas you never knew existed, consider subscribing so the rest of the list finds its way back to you. Number 6. Flavored crisps. Before the mid-20th century, crisps came out of the bag plane. Makers tucked a small twist of salt inside and left you to tear it open, tip it in, and shake, which never worked evenly, leaving a bitter pile of salt at the bottom and bland crisps on top. In 1954, the Irish businessman Joe Murphy, working with his colleague Seamus Burke at his company Tato, developed a way to apply seasoning to the crisps during production rather than leaving it to the customer. Adding the flavor while the crisps were still hot and freshly fried let it cling evenly to every piece. The result was the world's first cheese and onion crisp, and the technique was so successful that crisp makers around the world sought to license it, laying the groundwork for the entire flavored snack industry. Number 7. Sudocrem. Minor everyday skin trouble, chafing, a small burn, a razor nick, a patch of irritation, usually means a drawer full of separate creams. Many modern lotions are mostly water, so they rub off on clothes or wash away with a little sweat and need constant reapplying. Formulated in Dublin in 1931 by the pharmacist Thomas Smith, this one ointment takes a different approach, built on a heavy, water-repellent paraffin and lanolin base carrying zinc oxide and benzyl alcohol. The dense base forms a physical seal over the skin, holding off moisture and friction, while the benzyl alcohol acts as a mild local anesthetic to dull the sting, and the zinc oxide soothes the irritation underneath. Because it stays put under wear, a single tub quietly replaces several more delicate products. Number 8. The 90-minute fare. Commuters who change between modes, a train to a bus to a tram, often get punished for it, paying a fresh full fare at every connection, which quietly pushes people back into their cars. Dublin's integrated ticketing removes that penalty with a single 90-minute window. You tap your contactless travel card onto your first service. The system logs the time, and for the next hour and a half, you can move across buses, trains, and trams as much as you need without paying again. The whole chain of journeys is charged as one flat, affordable fare, so changing vehicles no longer costs you anything extra. Number 9. The hollow hypodermic needle. Early medicine relied on swallowing remedies or rubbing them on the skin, which made absorption slow, dosing imprecise, and targeted pain relief deep in the body almost impossible. In 1844, a Dublin physician named Francis Rind, working at the Meath Hospital, performed the first recorded subcutaneous injection using a hollow needle he devised, delivering a morphine solution to relieve a patient's severe facial neuralgia. By introducing medicine directly beneath the skin, he bypassed the digestive tract entirely and placed a precise dose exactly where it was needed. The hollow needle he pioneered became the foundation for the modern syringe developed in the years that followed, and for the injections, anesthetics, and mass vaccination programs that protect people today. Number 10. The 3-bin system. A single all-purpose bin leaves the hard work of separating recyclables, food, and waste to industrial sorting plants. And by the time the rubbish arrives, clean paper and cardboard are soaked in food and oil, dragging recycling rates down. Ireland moves the sorting back to the doorstep, with 3 color-coded bins for every household, one for dry clean recyclables, one for food and garden waste, and one for general rubbish. If you live in parts of the United States, the recycling bin will look familiar, and a handful of cities now run full multi-stream sorting. But the separate collection of food and garden waste is still far from standard across most of the country. Where it does run, separating food at the source means organic waste goes to anaerobic digesters that turn it into energy, while the dry recycling arrives clean and ready to process. Number 11. The school traffic warden. An unmanaged crossing outside a school turns into chaos at the start and end of the day, and ordinary crosswalks or flashing lights often fail to register with a distracted driver, leaving the child to judge the gap. Ireland's answer is the school warden, known affectionately as the lollipop warden, for the circular stop sign carried on a long pole. In high-visibility gear, the warden steps into the road and raises the sign, and by law, every vehicle must come to a complete stop. If you grew up in the United States, you already know this one well, since the crossing guard is exactly the same idea, and that's rather the point, because it's one of the few solutions on this list that much of the world already shares. The honest wish is simply to see more of them, on more corners, in more towns, because for those moments, the warden is both a physical and a legal barrier across the road, and school zones that have one stay remarkably safe. Number 12, the workplace smoking ban. For generations, indoor public spaces, restaurants, offices, and bars meant breathing other people's smoke, a real health risk for the staff who worked shifts in it. Ventilation systems were expensive and never quite cleared the air, and partial smoking sections did little to stop smoke drifting. In 2004, Ireland took the absolute route and became the first country in the world to ban smoking in all enclosed workplaces. The blanket nature of the law left no gray area for owners or customers to argue over. Air quality indoors improved straight away. The health risks to workers fell sharply, and the idea spread so quickly that dozens of countries now have versions of the same law. Number 13, the deposit return scheme. Curbside recycling depends on residents sorting correctly, and it's fragile. One unrinsed can leaking onto paper and cardboard can spoil a whole load and send recyclable material to landfill. To protect the quality of what's collected, Ireland launched its deposit return scheme in 2024. A small deposit is added to the price of plastic bottles and cans, and to get it back, you feed the empty container into a reverse vending machine at the shop, which scans the barcode, checks by weight that it's empty, and crushes it on the spot. The idea is far from unique to Ireland, and you may already know it. In the United States, around 10 states run their own versions, the so-called bottle bills, in places like Michigan, New York, and Oregon, though most of the country still has nothing like it. Where Ireland's scheme stands out is its speed. Recycling rates for in-scope containers climbed from under half to over 90% within the first year. Number 14, the plastic bag levy. A loose plastic bag escapes a bin easily, clogs drains, harms wildlife, and lingers in hedgerows for years. Awareness campaigns lean on goodwill, which rarely shifts habits at scale, while outright bans can jolt retailers overnight. Ireland wasn't the very first place to tax the bag. Denmark had taxed retailers back in the early 90s, but in 2002, Ireland did something new. It put the charge, 15 cent a bag, directly in front of the shopper at the till, and the law forbade shops from absorbing or hiding it, so it had to appear as its own clear line on the receipt. That small, visible, unavoidable cost was enough to change behavior overnight. Use fell from an estimated 328 bags per person each year to 21 almost immediately, a drop of around 90%. And it's this version, the point-of-sale consumer charge, that went on to spread across the world. If you've paid for a bag at a checkout in Britain, much of Europe, or many parts of the United States, you've met the model Ireland proved. Number 15, the public access defibrillator. When sudden cardiac arrest happens away from a hospital, the chance of survival falls by roughly 10% for every minute without treatment, and by the time an ambulance has fought through traffic, that window has often closed. The answer began with the portable defibrillator, developed in the 1960s by the Belfast cardiologist Frank Pantridge, and it now lives on the street. Automated external defibrillators sit in bright, weatherproof cabinets on public walls, at sports clubs, and on street corners, designed so that any passerby with no training can open the case and place the pads. The unit reads the heart's rhythm itself, gives clear-spoken instructions step by step, and will only deliver a shock if it detects a rhythm that one can correct, which takes the guesswork and the fear out of the hands of a stranger trying to save a life. So those are 15 quiet pieces of Irish design, infrastructure, and law that take a small daily frustration and simply remove it, and a few that the rest of the world has been glad to borrow. If you enjoyed seeing the thinking behind them, the video on screen now takes the same eye to another country, and a like and a subscribe make sure the next one reaches you.